Hello, 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 people. Welcome back to an episode of the USL Show. We are back, and hey, it is officially preview season here on the USL Show. John's been in preview season since roughly around November, but that's okay. Listen, we have a whole lot to get to. This week is the Western Conference. Next week is going to be the Eastern Conference. And the week after that, the first week of matches for the men's side, USL League One. So if you're wondering, when are we going to talk about my team? We will. We're going to go order of our ranking of number 1 to number 12. We'll talk about it in that order. And hey, if you are thinking about, do I want to wait till the very end, Monterey Bay, then hey, there will be individual videos coming out later, and you can check those out. But without all that, let's go ahead and get into this in a second. But first, John, how are you?
Yeah, happy to be here. It starts to feel real when we get to these previews, so I'm excited to really be getting down to the nitty-gritty as the season approaches.
Ryan, how about you? How are you doing?
Yeah, doing okay. I feel like I always talk about the weather, but it's finally warm enough that I can run outside comfortably in the now home of Scottish football in the United States, since they announced their home base is now in Charlotte for the upcoming World Cup.
Fascinating. Yeah, we are officially in fake spring season. So I cannot wait for the inevitable tornado that is coming, and then we'll be back into winter until real fall comes around once, or real winter coming along once again. So that's fun. All right. So before we get into this, we want to thank our amazing patrons: Matthew Shave, Doug Brooks, Stephen Howard, John's Landlord, Don Garber, David Horn, Josh, Dylan Reed, William Land, Sandy Lester, Ryan Smelter, Matt Capiel, Andrew Towsley, Olive the Hedgehog, Kunal Patel, MOS, NFresh 30, Tim Knox, Rion Lacara, Jeremy Churchman, Noah Telford, Michael Fuchs, John Fuller, Christopher Cohn, Frank Anthony, and John Hunt. Thank you guys so much for supporting us and what we do. We are just so thankful for you guys. Seriously, cannot thank you enough. All right, let's go ahead and get into the preview. All right, so first things first, we are starting with our Western Conference, and we're going to start off with the rankings that we view as the first ones that are our rankings, which is Tulsa first, Lexington second, Sacramento third, Oakland fourth. We had some beef with the fans on this one. New Mexico fifth, San Antonio sixth, Phoenix Rising at seventh, Switchbacks at eighth, Orange County at ninth, first one to miss the playoffs, Las Vegas Lights in 10th, El Paso Locomotive in 11th, and Monterey Bay down in 12th. That's our order. And that's the way we are going to talk about these if you're following us on the live stream. The fans, however, we were mostly similar. They had Tulsa 1, Sacramento 2, New Mexico 3, Lexington 4, San Antonio at 5, Phoenix at 6, Colorado Springs at 7, Orange County at 8, Oakland Roots at 9. So going from home playoffs to no playoffs. El Paso in 10th, Las Vegas in 11th, and Monterey in 12th. There's a lot of things here just to dive into eventually, but why don't we get straight into the defending Western Conference champions, which is FC Tulsa. They're kind of running it back here, where we're seeing a lot of the similar faces. Granted, things are subject to change at any given point, so just know that as we're recording this is the roster as we know it. But John, when I sent you guys this stuff and we asked for storylines, the storyline that came up multiple times from you guys was, will the West catch up tactically to FC Tulsa?
Yeah, and that was my question as well here. I think people didn't expect this team to be so vertical, so pressureful, really come out with such a significant sense of style last season. And you started to see teams adjust late on in the year. I think about the playoff game against Phoenix Rising, for instance, where that thing was so tightly run against a team in a pretty similar back three. You think about the title game, and it was much the same thing. I don't want to say that there's a blueprint out for how you approach Tulsa, but I think that is the useful framing if you are trying to think of what is the downside for Tulsa. Because there is so much to like. There's so much continuity. We trust Luke Spencer in this roster build. So the natural reaction is, okay, what can go wrong? And for me, that is probably the main scenario where people just decide we're going to bunker and counter and try to meet them toe to toe.
And this was coming off Tulsa's best season in club history. They had basically their entire roster coming back, Taylor Calhira, with the additions of Bruno Lapa and Raheem Summersall as being really key additions here in this offseason, that we're really like thinking this Tulsa team is going to be in the mix for winning the Western Conference regular season. They opened the season with 4 of their first 5 games at home, with a very key game away at Sacramento to open the year, that this team could very well be at the top of the table from wire to wire.
For me, what I'm looking at here is, I mean, you want to look up top where you're looking at Lapa, Weber, and Calhira, right? But for me, I am looking at this midfield. And what I still think, and John, you kind of loosely have Bruno Lapa playing the left wing with Khalil Medkar kind of coming in off the bench for him. I still see Lapa as that true number 8 or number 10. I know he kind of floated roles at Memphis quite a bit, but for me, I still see him as that number 8 or number 10, and maybe they put someone else up top or out and they move someone out. But if I am looking here, you're looking at Diallo, Summersall, you're looking at Coley, you're looking at Lapa. Is that not possibly the best midfield in the league, let alone the West?
I think there's a strong argument to make. And the reason I have Lapa in that kind of half space wing spot is like, you don't go get a guy who is 2-time all league and not play him. But the system is so dependent on having that variety, that steal through the midfield, that he probably is taking away from what you get from Diallo, from Summersall, that kind of guy. That's the beauty of this roster, though. There's competition at almost every single spot. You could make 8 changes week to week and still feel pretty good about what Tulsa is throwing out. That is something that they gradually built towards in 2025, but they didn't have it on opening day, and that's a different story this year.
And Tulsa will be looking to become the first team to go back-to-back at least regular season champions of the Western Conference since the league split into 2 conferences, and they'll be looking to be the first team to win the Western Conference via the playoffs since Swope Park Rangers did that in 2016 and 2017.
Love that. So, John, I'm going to ask the question here. I'm looking at this back line, and I'm looking at Batista, Sissoko. I'm looking at Ian. But we saw a lot down the stretch in the playoffs where Pierre was getting the start over Sissoko, right? And Pierre was kind of playing as that number 6 in possession, dropping back as a third center back out of possession. Is there a world, even though Sissoko was my defender of the year vote last year, by the way, but we also saw that he was the most expendable in the playoff run as Batista and Ian just kind of won their spots. Is there a world where you see them go to that forward the back in possession with Pierre maybe getting that nod at the 6?
He feels like the break glass in case of emergency kind of player, where if there's an injury in the back line, Dylan Spear is going to do the job there. If they need somebody to just be purely defensive minded in the midfield, he can do it. I don't think he starts in the best version of this team, but the fact that you have him on this roster, he's now a 2-time consecutive reigning Western Conference champion between the Switchbacks and Tulsa. Like that, again, speaks to the depth, even if I don't see him necessarily as a starter.
I want to go to a comment that we have in the chat, and it comes from obviously Mario, someone I talked to when we were out there in Tulsa. He's a longtime supporter, and he just mentions Johan over Tambakis, which we have talked about quite a bit on the show, actually, where I don't understand the move here, where Tambakis seems to have moved away from New Mexico. Granted, we don't know if Tambakis chose to move or if New Mexico moved on from him. We don't know those details, but you can't imagine Tambakis leaving to be a number 2 somewhere. He could have gone somewhere to be a number 1. But we talked about it when we were in Tulsa, John. Johan Peñaranda is one of the better goalkeepers in the league when he's healthy. which this kind of makes me question a couple things. Is Peñaranda not as reliable health-wise as we think, and maybe the front office knows something there? Or are they possibly thinking about having two different kinds of goalkeepers that they can just kind of roll out whatever the manager seems fit?
If you look at I will caveat this by saying both of us are very high on Peñaranda and what
Yes.
he gives you in goal. In terms of the advanced stats last year, he definitely took a step backwards. And so in that sense, if you can go out and get Alex Tambakis, who is the all-time saves leader in this league, somebody who brings that veteran presence, maybe that lights a fire under Peñaranda to a certain degree. That said, I would have just trusted Peñaranda and gone for a Tyler Derrick-esque, maybe veteran guy, but a clear number 2. But I like the ambition at a bare minimum. Tambakis is a tone setter. He's been around the block. He knows how to win in this league. The more talent you have, that's a good thing, especially at a spot like goalkeeper, where if your number 1 goes down, that can be crippling. Having the layers is a win, even if I'm a Peñaranda guy at heart.
Ryan, when you're looking at this season outlook for FC Tulsa, do you truly see them being what I'll call a wire to wire? They may not actually go wire to wire, but we are calling them preseason favorites. Do you see them as someone who can run the table yet again?
Yeah, I think just based off of what they built from last season, Luke Spencer has been an excellent coach for this Tulsa side that I think everything is lining up for them to have a really good season, that if they're not at minimum hosting a home playoff game, there would have to have been something that had gone wrong, injuries, or as we were saying with the major storyline, the West just catching up tactically to this Tulsa team. But yeah, I mean, pencil them in as one of the top 4 teams at minimum in this Western Conference.
Any thoughts on Tulsa before we move on?
They're good.
They are good. This is one of those things where if you are someone who doesn't get to watch FC Tulsa play in person very often, aka normally an Eastern Conference person, maybe you haven't seen them in 2 years when they weren't amazing, go watch them in person this year for the love. You do not grasp how fast, how quick, how strong, how quick their passing was all year long until you saw it in person. No wonder they were just dismantling teams left and right. You don't appreciate it on TV the way you do in person. Go watch them, please. Just go watch them in person. They are unreal.
And their games on stream are at a very reasonable hour for us Eastern Conference folks.
This is also true. All right. Final thoughts before we go on? Cool. On to Lexington, who we have at 2. The fans have them at 4, and we even got a comment on the Reddit of, I see you are falling for Lexington yet again. That's a great idea until you see the fact that they have Goodrum, Blessing, Mendes, they got Ferry, they got Luis Felipe, Firmino, Malloy, Adonez, Burks, and then Simla in the back. And plus, by the way, they ended the year amazingly and actually sort of figured stuff out. So, John, with multiple record-breaking transfers that they made, especially with the headline of Malloy and Goodrum, is a top 2 finish good enough for what they've spent?
Given that this team has never made the playoffs before as an organization, given the way that they see this internally as a little bit more of a long-term process than maybe we're thinking of from the outside, if they finish top 2 in the West, that should be good enough. Now, if it's top 2 in the West and then they lay an egg in the playoffs, maybe we can start to ask questions. But if they're at that level in a conference that is pretty stacked from number 1 to number 12, that is a win. And you're right to talk about why we have these expectations. They became the first team to spend $100,000 on a USL player, intra-league transfer-wise, and then they did it again a second time in the same offseason. They brought back Adida Kuhn, who they paid a fee for last year. They recruited a former defender of the year. Like, there should be expectations. Last year, they got their feet wet, but it wasn't this level of Galacticos going on. So yeah, that has to be the expectation.
And they'll have basically a really good test to see, is this Lexington team for real to open the season with the Blue Brassico? Like, Philip Goodrum can go up against his former club. And, like, honestly, if we could do USL individual player bets, Philip Goodrum could very well be scoring against his former club in that game. And then they back it up with a game against Sacramento the very following week, both of these games at home for Lexington, that we'll very quickly see kind of early in the season, is this Lexington team for real?
You mentioned Galacticos style, where, I think it's easy to look at Lexington and say all-star team, super team, whatever. I'm also looking at what they did on the Super League side. And for people who haven't been following along, the Super League, they did the same thing. They bought your best players and they ran it. And they had a coach named Masaki Hime as their coach. Well, would you look at that? Masaki Hime is also the Lexington men's coach now. And so going in and having these really great teams and making a system out of it, is there a little bit of, I don't want to call it ego management, but a little bit of ego management that Hime might already be accustomed to on the women's side that you can kind of take to the men's side?
100%. I mean, when you're coming in with this level of player and you have to get them to buy into the system, even if there isn't an ego problem, because a lot of like Aaron Malloy is the nicest dude in the world. Yes. But just getting the buy-in from top to bottom is difficult in this short run-up. So if you want to take this level of talent, integrate it into a team that is going to be pretty sophisticated with the way they want to play soccer, you have to have a coach that has shown ability to do that. And you're exactly right to say that's what Hime did in the Super League.
Ryan, when you're looking at this squad and the run-up they're going to have into it, how much can we put into travel? Because they are, the most Eastern team. They are more Eastern than some Eastern Conference teams, because that all makes a ton of sense. Can we put a lot into travel and maybe why results may not be what you would think from a team that looks this good on paper?
Yeah, I absolutely think travel has certainly played a role, and especially considering the fact that we'll have instances this season with Lexington when they'll go like 4 of their 5 games played. I think it's within the month of May and June, will be on the road, and that's just going to be a grind for a lot of these players. And excuse me, especially when you get towards the at least stretch part of the end of the season, when a lot of these games will be played on the road when it comes time to start clinching playoff spots, that it eventually is going to wear down on a team and what is going to be arguably the most grueling schedule within the Western Conference, within all of USL Championship.
John, when you're looking at how they ended last season, where they they started figuring it out and then a late sputter took them out of the playoffs, can you take any kind of continuity they may have had with that team going into this team, or without Boss being the boss anymore, do you really have to feel like it is a brand new start?
I mean, I think if you watch what Lexington did at the end of last season, which was some level of possession out of the back, like a kind of mixed approach in possession, but a decent amount of pressure, a willingness to possess in a back three and then let one of the fullbacks go upfield. That's kind of what Hime did with the Super League team. So you're not moving miles away tactically. And in that sense, there is something to build off of. You think about returning players like a Hafferty, like a Blaine Ferry. I think Nick Firmino is going to get minutes, Blessing and Adidakun. They know how this system is supposed to be run. That's going to help this team writ large get up to speed more quickly than it would in isolation. And yeah, that momentum, even if it didn't end up in a playoff spot, maybe is going to give them a little bit of a kickstart in 26.
So kind of looking through this one last time, one thing we knew that Brooks Thompson was gone on loan for a couple of days now, because Third Degree kind of posted about it a while back on Twitter, but we knew Brooks Thompson was gone on loan, and so we weren't able to I wasn't able to update the graphic before it got posted today. But do you guys see any kind of fear without any real backup options behind Simla, with Thompson gone on a short-term loan with an option to buy, and Ketterer, who is down with injury? Is that a real concern for Lexington?
I mean, they're going to get somebody be durable. He's got the size and frame you want out of your number one. Goalkeeper injuries are somewhat rare. Nightmare if that backup goal for them. But it is, if you're going to poke a hole in, like, problem.
I'm trying to pull it up but then I accidentally, from what I remember, their goalkeeper then was solid. So there's a world where they can pull someone from the 2 team to kind of be a backup option on the bench. Maybe they can't get in right away just because of, and I'm trying to pull it up before I completely talk out my tail here, but they also have an academy set up where if you have an inexperienced too, that at the worst comes on at the very last, during an injury, during a game, that's possible. You could also just say, okay, no big deal. Or if that happens during the week, you can bring in an emergency goalkeeping loan if needed.
Yeah, like their League 2 goalkeeper, at least last season, was someone who played 3 years at the University of Kentucky, was the Sun Belt goalie of the year in 2022. If that's your worst case scenario, like a guy who was a very good starter at the college level, I don't think that's a nightmare.
I'm assuming you're talking about Griffin Huff.
I'm talking about Casper Moles, but the fact that they had 2 legit goalkeepers probably tells you something.
Yeah, Griffin Huff was he. You know what? No, Griffin Huff would not be available because I remember seeing what happened with him. He's actually signed with Chattanooga FC. So you are probably right to be calling out the other one. So because Griffin Huff just got signed professionally. So, okay, cool. Anyway, any final thoughts on Lexington before we move on? No, let's go actual out west, where we are California driven. The Sacramento Republic, they come in at number 3, number 2 with the fans. But it's a kind of a new look team for a Neil Collins side, where they have Malongo on the left, Rodriguez on the right, they have Ajago up top, where they have a lot of just kind of changes throughout, with a lot of players moving on or retiring. So, John, is this front line, this new look front line, good enough to replace what they lost?
It's an interesting conundrum because you look at the players they had last year. Russell Cicerone, Rodrigo Lopez, guys that had been there forever. Corey Bennett, who came in as a midseason addition with a lot of expectations and was good, if not great. And then a Juan Sebastian Herrera, even, who could give you the hold-up play. A lot of known quantity players, but maybe not Neil Collins types, right? Like he wants his forwards to be pretty active, pretty pressureful, and just the age of that front line and maybe the size of those strikers relative to speedier, more press-centric types wasn't entirely fit to the way Collins wants to play ball. So in some sense, it felt like a little bit of continuity from what Mark Briggs wanted to do. This is a different story. Malongo is a speed demon. Ajago has all the physical talent in the world. Rodriguez at least has operated in a lot of systems where he's been forced to be an active presser, a good head on his shoulders in terms of positioning in that phase. I think that is going to be the real change in approach we see for this team. So if they can tilt the field that way, create transition moments, and then just do what they do in the final third, that should be a formula to get them over the hump. And that's probably why the fans have them number 2 in the conference.
Yeah, and like even if you look back to Neil Collins' time at Tampa Bay in the 2018 season when he got promoted into the job, that was kind of a transition year for the team, but he did improve the Rowdies in the following season for 2019. So I do believe with Neil Collins coming into his second year in charge of Sacramento Republic, this will be a very good Sacramento team on top of what we saw from last season. I do think the key that we're going to have to look into for this Republic team is if you look back through the entire club's history from winning the first time that they were a club in 2014 to the now 13th season that they're playing now, 7 of those years, they didn't advance past the first round of the playoffs, including last season as well. So we know the playoffs are kind of a crapshoot when it gets into, especially down to penalties. So I definitely think this Republic team needs to be looking to get past that first round of this year's Western Conference playoffs.
Yeah, John, I kind of want to ask you about this left wing back side, because when we saw Spalding come into Tampa Bay all those years ago under Neil Collins, he looked like he was going to be not just a legit superstar, but a regular starter at the MLS level. It hasn't really worked out, and now you see that we're getting Benitez in what you think is in front of him. What's going to happen with Spalding from that time when he was at Tampa Bay to Sacramento?
I think he's still just a very good soccer player. I want to say there's been a little bit of injury problems. To me, it's just the balance that Benitez gives you. We know, is the best overlapping player you've got in the league, probably. What he gives you up the right side is unmatched, but it can't exist in a vacuum. So you've got to kind of rotate Timmer over. You need to make sure you have a sense of security at that end. And that carries over to the left side. You can't have both of those wingbacks completely selling out at all times unless you just leave yourself open to switches in transition. Benitez is better in that phase of play. If we're talking offensive impact, give me Spalding all day. If we're talking about tucking inside to be a setup passer, doing the rotations and the defensive coverage, I think that's what Sacramento sees in his game. But it's a luxury to have both in case of emergency, for sure.
And even then, this is another Sacramento team who made the formerly named Jägermeister Cup final as well. That this team is very much capable of competing across multiple competitions entering this season.
I also wonder how a normal offseason is going to do Sacramento, because the transition from Briggs to Collins, I mean, do you guys remember the transition of Collins coming to the U.S. where his former club in Scotland was basically like, we don't want him to go, but he's basically crying in the club and we kind of have to force him to go over here. Like, things are not going well. Like, talk about a tumultuous way to end your past career and then coming into Sacramento, not necessarily late, but, you know, before maybe business could get done and other clubs had kind of gotten some business done. Just a normal offseason for the Republic may do them just a load of wonders.
No, and that's kind of what I was getting at with the rebalance of Collins is just here from the jump. He knows where he wants to take this team after one full season. The formula makes sense. And I do want to shout out in that sense what we got from you and in the comments about Pep Casas. The more I've seen about him and thought about the balance in this midfield, I think he might start over Crisostomo next to Blake Willie. He was so impressive in Huntsville, so impressive in Inter Miami too before that. Kind of diminutive, but really powerful on the ball, good passer, good defensive interventions. Just that little bit of everything powerhouse through the middle. Someone to watch as a breakout player for sure.
Any kind of final thoughts here? All right. The Oakland Roots. The fans hate them. We love them. Were we bought out by the Roots? Maybe. That's what happens when your admin's nice to us. I can and will be bought. But also, we do love this roster, and we love Ryan Martin. And the major storyline here is, will Ryan Martin's tactics, his tactical identity, travel west of the Mississippi?
Yeah, and I kind of spotlight that as my theme here, if only because the West tends to be a little bit faster paced, a little bit more physical in a way that runs contrary to what we saw from Martin and Loudon. And I don't have any doubt that he's going to be able to successfully implement the tactical system writ large. How that fits in the West is a different question. But you look at the talent on paper, right? McCabe in that midfield is a holdover. Velo doing what he does as this roving forward. That's consistent. You add in Danny Trejo on that wing doing the Epicora things. Peter Wilson fresh off a golden boot. it's what we saw with Loudon, but with even better offensive upside and just 10 out of 10 all USL level finishers in the best case scenario. It's very exciting if they can hold up the end of the bargain, given the physicality and the tempo of the West.
And to keep on the topic of Ryan Martin's tactics traveling, when Loudon, and obviously different roster than what we see here with Oakland, barring a few players who have followed Ryan Martin to Oakland, when they had 7 matchups against Western Conference teams last season across the Jägermeister Cup and the league, they only won 2 of those games, which were against El Paso and Lexington.
One thing I'm really highlighting for me personally, and you can look at a McCabe who has the conversation of possibly being the best kind of 6th in the league. He's in that conversation. Below, who he's just inevitable constantly, and I feel like he doesn't get enough respect. We talked about it, I think it was last show. Peter Wilson may be the most under-respected Golden Boot winner ever. Trejo has his own thing going for him, where, I mean, he's one of the most decorated players that this league has to offer. But Tingy at right back is ever so underrated, and we named him to our halfway through the season best 11 last year. But even people who watch this show may not fully appreciate Tingy and what he brings from that right back position. And it might just be the refresh that this Roots team needs to kind of give them some balance.
I forgot we did that. That's some Galaxy brain best 11 picking right there. Did you Keegan Tingy? I love that. I also think that this team probably isn't done. Like, they're gonna sign at least one more winger and forward, just looking at the mix they've got right now, and that's only gonna make me more excited. There's also the aspect of maybe some of the unsung players they've added. Like David Garcia coming in from Spokane is somebody I think we might have actually put on our League One best 11, or I was fighting for it if not.
Garcia was our right back option, or sorry, our center back option both times. He was all league in the midway and throughout at the very end of the season. Tingy was our right back.
There we go. Yeah, but Garcia is great. Michael Edwards is somebody that Martin knew coming through the DC United pipeline. He was good on loan in Charleston last year, but kind of just didn't play that much. But you think about them improving a defense that was terribly inconsistent. That alone, agnostic of tactics, is going to be a huge upgrade for Oakland.
Sorry, Ryan, you have some?
Yeah, and I also think Oakland's schedule is going to kind of help them here as well. They have a very interesting grudge match against Ryan Martin's old team on May 2nd with Loudon, and then they play Pittsburgh. But outside of that, the other 4 teams that they play in the Eastern Conference as well all missed the playoffs from last season, which at least bodes well for this Oakland team to really kind of bank on those points from these cross-conference matchups.
Something that I feel like also just kind of needs to be pointed out here, you know, one thing we talked about with Loudon was that they were a younger team. They grew up together, and that was just kind of their identity because they were a 2 team. And you get some of those younger guys coming over, but then you get these proven players, and you could even say a Trejo. But isn't it, I think it's personally really cool that you still get a Nabil Hackshaw, who's planning to start at center back with them, where there was a while where it's like he's going to retire any day now. Like, he just seems to have lost it. But he has looked revitalized in the last year, where you're pretty excited about what you see out of Hackshaw personally. That having that kind of experience in your back line, I think is going to do wonders for this Oakland team.
I do think he may end up behind Edwards or Garcia. But again, like, if he's your third center back in a 2-man grouping, that is a boon. He's been everywhere across this league. He's played as a 6. He's won games. That level of experience and a little bit of continuity for Oakland is a big deal. Like, Trejo and Wilson are still kind of new to this whole vibe. There aren't a lot of real culture guys for Oakland, and Hackshaw can be that in a way that I think matters a lot.
We also get the question of, how do you guys think McIntosh can improve this year? I think one thing we saw under Benny Villauber was their back line was real. And one key part of that was Gagi was just an absolute menace once he kind of came in. I think with McIntosh, one thing that you want to see for me, his footwork's great. I mean, seriously, if you watch him in warmups, his footwork's awesome. His shot stopping is good, but not elite. He's not your Paul Blanchett where he's just going to sit back there and just absorb shots. You want to see what McIntosh can do with his feet a little bit. He's not a Koke Vegas, but also Ryan Martin's not going to ask him to be Koke Vegas. You might not even ask him to be a Hugo Faru. But I do think McIntosh's style fits more of a Faru than a Paul Blanchett, which I think we'll see him take a natural step up with Ryan Martin as opposed to a Gavin or a Phil Lauber.
Yep, 100%.
Any final thoughts on Oakland? Okay. New Mexico. We have them fifth. The fans have them third. They have had some major changes going on in their back line. And maybe that's right, considering how poorly of an end it came for them in the last year. Granted, not really a defensive problem, but also kind of was. If you watch the game, you know what happened with FC Tulsa. So is Chris Shake strong enough to overcome a complete defensive shakeup?
That is the big question. And also, is Chris Shakes going to start over Raiko Rosarena? Because Dennis Sanchez brought in his guy from Vegas. There's just a lot of new faces at the back and a lot of questions to answer. And to an extent, I think there's a lot to trust. Kip Keller came in late last season and didn't miss a beat. He was so good in that back line. He feels like a piece you can build around that can approximate what they got from Talon Maples. We saw Malik Howell really struggle in 2025, but when he was in the Dennis Sanchez system with Las Vegas, knockout, great player, somebody that I thought could maybe move up the pyramid a little bit. He's so good with the ball, knows how to use his body when he's in those transitional moments, lets you set a high line that serves as a base for possession. That is all great in theory, but how does it come together when there are so many new faces, not a lot of depth? I'm not a fan of Will Seymour at right back, just given the athletic profile there. On top of that, both goalies with the idea of, if I make a mistake, maybe I'm losing my job. There is some downside risk for a team that feels so solid everywhere else.
And to New Mexico's benefit, they don't have to travel east of Albuquerque until May 30th in the season. We know how incredibly important it is playing at Isotopes Park for this team. They were fourth in the Western Conference last season in home win record, and even third in the Western Conference last season in their road form. That if they can just string together their results, like if you look at this team through the months of May and June, they have a lot of home games in a row that we could see this team really go on a lot of streaks like we saw them do last season.
One thing that I look at here, and everybody's talking about it in chat, where you have Reed Stevens, who came in and he was due for a move. He was unbelievable down with Tormenta. Seeing how he pairs with the Greg Hurst is going to be really interesting for me. I think seeing what kind of partnership comes with that is going to be fun. And I think for Greg Hurst, it might be what he needs, because more so than anybody else in the league, I don't think I've seen a striker flow with confidence like he does, where once he gets his goal, the floodgates open. But if there's a dry streak, you can tell it starts to get to him more so than I think other players. Having a Reed Stevens by him might take that pressure off him, and we might see a more open flowing Greg Hurst that we haven't seen since Union Omaha.
And there's a tendency for Hurst, if he, and more so than any other striker in the USL, if he doesn't feel like he's involved, that guy is going to drop 30 yards out of his box and just try to get touches. And you like that from Greg Hurst within that system because he keeps the game flowing. But there has to be the counterweight of somebody up there doing the job closer to goal. If you've got Reed Steven, if you've got Justin Rennicks, who had a cup of coffee in MLS and was good in Europe the past couple of years, suddenly there are forwards and wingers that have that instinct in a way that Hurst sometimes doesn't. Feels like a better balance for sure.
You mentioned Will Seymour, who, if the USL had like one of those connect the dots games that like a couple of MLB teams do, he's one of my favorites because I think he's the only active USL player that played with Alphonso Davies. Like when Alphonso Davies was starting on the left back side, Will Seymour was starting on right back. Like they were playing together, and I just think that's awesome. So
Bayern should sign him.
Welcome back, Vincent Kompany's man. I'm looking at this back line as well with Howell, and as a jaded Birmingham fan who saw Howell for exactly 2.5 times and never again, and gave up Kobe Hernandez Foster for him, it's fine. I do wonder if we're going to see him return to that Las Vegas Lights version of himself. He had a little bit of an injury bug in Birmingham. It's not, he didn't get dropped for a lack of talent. It was a little bit of an injury thing. Maybe having a healthy offseason and a coach in Sanchez who knows him and trusts him will give him a lot more confidence. I'm going to be really intrigued to see if he can bounce back to 2024, Malik.
He's just not the kind of defender you want sitting back in a low block being forced to do that. So in that sense, I think New Mexico puts him in advantageous positions. I feel pretty strongly that he's somebody you can rely on, but I understand why others maybe think differently.
Also, I find the Arozarena conversation to be really interesting as well, where and granted, this is on me, so if somebody pulls up film and says you're wrong, I will happily accept that. But off the top of my head, Ryko and Chris Shakes both kind of have the same issue where they're good shot stoppers, but I don't necessarily always trust their hands. And so it's like, are they going to give a cheap spill in the box? Maybe. They're good enough shot stoppers usually to fix that problem, but are they going to let in a goal where maybe they try to punch one instead of catching it cleanly? Maybe. That's going off of memory from a couple years ago, to be fair. But I want to be interested to see if that's a constant problem for New Mexico, where Tambakis, after Steinwasser retired, there weren't that many just truly safe hands in the USL anymore. I wonder if you're going to see someone from Tambakis who was like that next best guy of super safe hands. He was going to catch it and not let it go. If maybe New Mexico sees regression in that front.
No, that's a good shout for sure.
Any final thoughts? All right. Oh, I clicked the wrong thing. San Antonio falls in a weird place for me where I don't really see many holes here besides depth. And I like pretty much every single part of this team. But as you put in your storyline, and it was a much better storyline than I had, John, can Carlos Llamosa settle on something tactically for more than a few matches at a time?
Yeah, I mean, you watched this team in March and April last season. It is spreading the field, kind of 4-3-3-ish, so fast, so fun. And then they lose a game and it's off the rails. And some of that is injuries, right? Mitchell Tainer goes down. Alex Cronale misses a lot of time. They can't figure out the striker spot. But there were so many tweaks, such a lack of clear identity that I think has been resolved this offseason. Because Llamosa has added players like a Mikey Maldonado, like a Christian Pirano and an Akeem Ward, who are good with the ball at their feet. You trust them to bring the work rate 24/7. The health is there. What we saw early last season, where they're building through lines, finding those creators in the half turn, that should be the template from week one. And if they just trust that process through the season and ride it, that should be enough for San Antonio to challenge for a home playoff game.
Yeah, and this is a team who, in the latter half of last season, those final kind of 15 league games, they only won 4 of them, but they were no longer at least getting blown up because they had some of those results, such as a 42 defeat to New Mexico, a 4-0 loss to Charleston, and earlier in the season that kind of went away. Even though they weren't stringing together results in that second half of the season, they only had one span of time where they went 3 matches unbeaten. I do think the San Antonio team is quietly have gone about their business and has improved the team, bringing back San Antonio local Mikey Maldonado to the team, bringing back Christian Pirano as well. Like, this team should be at least competitive for a home playoff game, like you said, John.
When I was looking at this roster coming into this episode, and I was looking at matches from last year, trying to kind of figure out where do they need to improve, where can they really pick stuff up. Other than I am just always overly mean to Richard Sanchez, and it's something I need to get over with myself. I really do. I should not be as mean as I am to Richard Sanchez. I need to stop it. That's really the only clear place that I'm like, yeah, that needs an upgrade or that can't compete. This team can go toe to toe with anybody for my worth.
You look at the back line, you look at the midfield, and you're like, those are 2 of the best position groups in the league. I have some slight doubts that Santiago Patino can be that guy. He looked like he had lost a step when he came back last season. Maybe that's just joining up partway through the year, and he's going to look like a guy who had a preseason this time around. That and the Sanchez thing are question marks. I also think the composition of this roster is going to tempt Carlos Llamosa to be unnecessarily clever. They've got 5 center backs. They've just added Barbier and Santiago Suarez, who are comfortable in a back 3. That doesn't feel like the way that this team should be oriented. Like, the more defenders they've got on the pitch, the less chance they have at controlling the midfield, when that is so obviously the strength of what this squad should be.
I also find it very interesting with Tainter Crognale, and specifically I want to look at Suarez, and I'm just mentioning Suarez because I watched him last year in Birmingham, right? He's who I do know the best. All 3 of them are very good with the ball at their feet, like really good with the ball at their feet, can pick out a good pass, can break lines if needed. Where Tainter is really good at sitting back and defending if you want, but it kind of feels like if you're just telling him just to sit back there, defend, and do nothing else, it feels like you're not getting the most out of Mitchell Tainter. Where if you are playing those 3, you kind of have 3 of the same guys on the pitch for my worth, where I'm not really sure what you have there defensively or just kind of tactically going on. And Suarez is in on loan from MLS. They're going to expect him to play. If not, he'll get recalled, and maybe that's what San Antonio is banking on, is like, hey, he's going to be back up. If someone goes down, he'll just start, and it'll be fine. And if we don't play him, we have 2 others. But even so, it just feels like a confusing move for them.
That exact train of thought is why I'm worried about a back 3.
If you were to drop somebody in this team, say they go to a back 3, do you expect them to go to a 5-3-2? Because for me, I don't think I would mess with this midfield at all. I love this midfield a lot. And do you drop someone from that forward line?
I think you probably kind of do the box, like the 3-box-3, quote unquote, where it's Nicky Hernandez, Maldonado, and then you've got Jorge Hernandez and Pirano kind of floating together in the middle, let the wingbacks overlap over them, which isn't bad in theory. Like, I like that a lot. It's just they've got a lot of depth in the attacking midfield that feels wasted in that system. And I'm clearly missing the forest for the trees somewhere. Like Carlos Imasa, what they've got in terms of the front office has a plan in place that I don't see from the outside. But I don't hate it. It just feels like not the right way to build this roster right now.
Another comment here. Emil Quaisho also joining the team. He's coming back to San Antonio, so we'll see how that slots in. It's not the same Emil Quaisho from a few years ago, but it's still fantastic depth to have around.
He's probably cooked in terms of his legs, but I love the reunion.
Can I tell you something unfair about Quaisho, and then we'll move on?
Please.
I can watch him do so many just amazing things, but his lasting memory for me is the Panenka. I can't. Every time you mention Quaisho, I'm like Panenka.
It's kind of the most insane thing that's ever happened.
So, any final thoughts on San Antonio? All right. Phoenix Rising. Hey, Pamatka had this team playing last year. John, he had you ready to run through a brick wall. Same thing with this team. Unfortunately, they did not lead to people wanting to score the ball. Unless it was like the 99th minute, then they always found an equalizer somehow. But it was never from a forward. Can Phoenix fix their finishing woes this season?
The thing about Phoenix, I was digging into some of these numbers over the weekend. I think they led the league in conversion rate. They actually finished really well. They just were terrible at creating chances. And that's an important distinction. Now, what's fascinating is they haven't really added more creators. They are buying into this argument that the players we've acquired are just going to create more space in the final third. That'll happen in a few ways. Some of it is just the speed you're getting with Darius Johnson, getting a full season of Kelvin Arase, two of the best one-on-one dribblers, transition threats you've got. Carvajal and Studenhoft, maybe not proven at the championship level, but they are the kinds of number nines that are constantly on the back shoulder of the defense, pushing you back and creating that room for Hope Abievo to do his thing. It's the full season of Flores after they've got him on loan again. It's Luke Biasi, who, from what I understand, is going to be a fullback in this team. The idea is we're going to spread the field, buy more space, and be able to really take over games and create. Now, that is the best case scenario if all of those things come good. I have doubts about the wings. I have doubts about the forwards. There is kind of minimal depth beyond Abievo creatively. That said, the fact that there is the clarity of vision means something to my eyes.
And this was a team last year who only got shut out 6 times in the regular season, but they only kept 5 clean sheets on the year. So they were, at least by all accounts, the entertainers of the conference, where if you watched any of their games, they were really fun to watch. They had that 4-4 draw with El Paso, the 3-3 draw with Oakland, El Paso, and Birmingham as well. So this is at least a team who has an entertaining stretch to them. It's just, can they convert this into results? This, in terms of their club history, was their second lowest scoring season since 2020 on record.
I'm really fascinated by Luke Biasi as a fullback. That just feels like a waste in bringing in Luke Biasi. Like, especially if you are saying Colin Smith is the guy we trust and as a right back, as a wing back option, I feel like that's just underutilizing the talent that you have. I guess the idea of, okay, we're just going to trust the guys to create more is Hope Abievo. You're saying, okay, we're actually going to play him as a 10 this year and not as a false 9 or as a striker this year. So the guy that we want to create is going to be able to create. And maybe that's the idea. But even so, I'm a little confused on the roster build.
When they moved to that back 3 at the very end of last season, and I think it was only like a 5-game sample, but they were giving up 0.6 XG per game. Hope was maximized as a number 9 in a lot of ways with what he could do creatively. I am somewhat surprised, and especially with Biasi coming in, given what he did defensively for Pittsburgh as a center back, it makes a lot of sense to go back to the back three. I know I just criticized San Antonio for the lack of clear vision with what they're trying to do in their identity. Phoenix feels like a team where they know what they want to be, but that plan B of leaning into the defense, Avievu, false nine, and a 3-4-3, there is such appeal to that if things go wrong. It's going to be fascinating to see if they get off to a slow start, what will that look like?
And John, like to end off that regular season from last year, of those 5 clean sheets that Phoenix kept, 3 of them were in those final 3 games of the season.
Wow.
And also kind of looking at what's kind of going on here, Gomez is a player that's an up-and-coming player. He's someone that everybody is going to be circling, saying, what can he be? He's an exciting prospect. But that also means losing a guy like JP Sears, where you want him standing over the ball on a free kick. You want him to be able to create in the midfield when possible. Again, just another fascinating decision that Palmaka is going to have to make.
From the Phoenix media folks who were at their friendly against Vegas over the weekend, high reviews for Skiers, who started next to Morsu in the pivot. I think there is going to be some genuine competition there because that staff, for good reason, is enamored with what JP Skiers gives them.
And now I'm going to feel really bad. Chituru, that's the part I know I got. Oduns?
I think you
the
pronounced
goalkeeper.
the E, so I think it would be like Udunse, but close enough.
Udunse?
Charlotte.
Yes. I mean, good with the ball at his feet. He's a fantastic shot stopper. Also, 6'7", like ridiculous. I'm very interested to see what happens there. He is on loan from Charlotte. How are they going to handle him and Rakovsky, who he has a pedigree for a reason. He is a good player, but for my taste, seemingly past it. I wouldn't be shocked if Udunse ends up getting the nod throughout the season.
And Pop Madukan also has the history that he was also in Charlotte as well, so he's very familiar with Udunse as well.
Any final thoughts here?
I think this team has a lot of upside, but it's too easy to see the scenario where they're mediocre again. Like, if Phoenix got a top 3 seed, I wouldn't be shocked, but the median outcome is far lower than that.
If we end up in the same place we got last year where Colin Smith was playing center back because like everybody was dead, yes, I see that world happening again, but I also see the world where they just come out gangbusters and are finishing top 4 with ease. So they are a high ceiling, disastrously low floor team. All right. Colorado Switchbacks. They end up getting our final home playoff spot, where I am going to be completely honest with the people. They were tied in our rankings when you did the math on it. They were tied with Orange County. I gave Colorado Springs the nod because they had 2 8th place votes. Meanwhile, Orange County's math, they went from, I think it was 7, 8, and 10. So it worked out, and one other number that I don't remember off the top of my head. Either way, the math worked out. Either way, Colorado Springs was consistently ranked 8th amongst us. Meanwhile, Orange County had a little bit of a wider spread. So flip, just kind of know that it was close. However, the fans ranked them 7th. And you can kind of see why. You look across this team, you like what you see. You see Kyle Vassell, he is back. You haven't seen him since San Diego Loyal, but he was an absolute menace back then. Corey Bennett, who we talked about earlier, makes his way over. And there's a lot of players from that championship team who are here, and they're kind of running it back. They're probably moving on from Herrera with Colin Shuttler up top or in the back now. But is moving on from Chambers to McCann, who was this assistant coach. Was that enough of a change to kickstart this team?
Yeah, I mean, it is the big question, because McCann comes from the same coaching tree as pretty much everyone that has managed this club. Like, it is the Brendan Burke DNA, same lineage as Hogan and Chambers. And you look at the squad, as you mentioned, Kaylor, there is some continuity here. Like, Matt Mahoney was the identity guy for this team. He will probably play every minute of the regular season. Speedy Williams was so key in 2024. They bring him back after that year in Lexington. To me, the question becomes, how different is the offense? You've got Vassell, who didn't really nail down a starting spot after coming in mid-season last year, and he had high expectations as the answer at the 9. Now they're going to probably partner him with Corey Bennett. Is that too similar? Do you play vertically into them and kind of lean into the way the West has moved in terms of that long ball press style? I don't know the answer to any of those questions, but I think McCann needs to come out and show he's got some original ideas and he is a new voice, or I'm kind of questioning what was the point of the change otherwise.
And excuse me, this has been a Colorado Springs team that has completely shifted what the standard for the club was, all leading up to that title that they had in 2024. From 2017 to 2020, this team went 4 straight years. They did not qualify for the playoffs. And now from 2021 to last season, they've gone to the playoffs 5 seasons in a row. This expectations for the Switchbacks teams as an organization has now become be a consistent playoff team. And for 4 of those 5 seasons, they were hosting playoff games as well. But we will at least get a really good way to kind of measure against Orange County on March 21st, the 3rd game of the year, of that other team that they were tied on points here for this final playoff spot for our own rankings, Kaylor, that this is going to be a very good measuring stick against the teams that might very well pip them for a playoff spot.
I'm looking at this team and I want to like it, because we've seen it win a championship recently. I mean, we're looking at Ahanya, you're looking at LaCroix, you're looking at Ed Mahoney, Herrera is still here, Fijilberg, Tejada. There's a lot of with Speedy Williams, there's a lot of the DNA still here from that year. Was Rocha there that year? I don't remember. But a lot of continuity here that we've seen have success extremely recently. But I just cannot get the image of last year just being so flat. It was still a decent team, but just really, really flat, where when you lose a guy like Damas, who you expected just to bag goals, and, he's good for 10 to 12 every single year. Now you have a Bennett who the ceiling is there. You have Vassell, which we all know what he can be. The ceiling is there. But we saw the floor last year with this team as well, I think. I'm really intrigued to see if they can move back up at all.
And I do think I'm almost being too cute in the way I've gone about being negative, because their big issue last season was they couldn't rely on the back line, and that was the domino effect that changed everything. Now you've got Maples in, and they've basically got 4 good defensive midfielders who can be protection. It's Speedy Williams, it's Sam Williams on loan. Brendan Creek came in midway through last year, so I'm cheating and counting him. But then Frank Daroma as well, who is just pure energy, even though he's kind of wee for that position. But taken together with what else they've got with Shuttler coming in, that's a base you can rely on. So maybe it just is as simple as saying the defense is good, everything flows out of that, and they can get back to 24 form pretty easily.
I'm intrigued by the Shuttler move, where he finally came into his own after being really bad in Orange County, and then he was one of the best goalkeepers in the league. We've seen him kind of grow up in front of our eyes as a goalkeeper, but Herrera is also a really, really good goalkeeper, where that fight is going to be really interesting between the two, because they're different styles of keeper. So we'll see which one McCann kind of prefers, but I'm very interested to see what you have there. John, is there a world where, let's say, Vassell or Corey Bennett doesn't work out exactly? I'm not saying that they get released throughout the season, but maybe it's not working as well as you could. Is there where we see like a Wante Hada kind of come in and act as a number 10 and we kind of see a 4-2-3-1 emerge with this team?
So I was watching Spokane Zephyr this weekend, and they're doing this thing where they're going like 4-1-4-1, where they tend to play pretty direct and long out of the back. And the whole idea is you've got these two midfielders, and in their case, it's Felicia Knox and Emma Yaskinek, who can just battle and win the ball. If it's like Frank Daroma and Wante Hada doing that, that makes a lot of sense to me for the way you set up this team. And Wante Hada, even if it isn't sexy or especially technical, that guy just makes your soccer team better when he's on the field. He earns minutes because of that impact. I think there is a chance that if, again, slow start, maybe you mix it up and he becomes a key contributor.
Any final thoughts on the switchbacks? All right. To the team that they were tied with, Orange County SC. The fans have them 8th. We have them 9th. Orange County, they did not seem to make any real tangible upgrades. They have one of the best talent development systems this country has to offer. Can those guys, those young guys, grow up enough to overcome a lack of real upgrades?
They are going to come into this season and expect Tyson Espy, who maybe is 17 now. I'm not quite sure, but I mean, the moral of the story is he like just got the ability to drive and he could get real minutes in central defense. That's a question mark. You've got Cheek Kone, who was good last season, but if he's your backup striker, that's a lot of responsibility. Somebody's got to come in and replace the impact of Bryce Jamison, who admittedly I was somewhat lower on, but can Jameer Johnson maybe be that guy? A storied U.S. youth national team player with a lot of goals at that level and a lot of Next Pro experience, despite being a teen. Nicolas Ciota, even at right back, who I think is going to have some real minutes as well, given the lack of depth there. And Orange County, I don't think we should doubt them. Like, those young guys always tend to be good, but there really hasn't been a lot that is obviously improving the level elsewhere. And I think that's what's fascinating here.
Yeah, and this was an Orange County team who, in spite of not having more than one instance of winning back-to-back games last season, they still made the playoffs, and they won a playoff game for the 3rd season in a row. It's the longest streak that they've been in the playoffs and winning playoff games in club history. Up until this point, Ethan Zubak will be going for his 3rd consecutive season where he could be leading the team in goals because he got 11 goals in the league in each of the last 2 seasons, weirdly enough. But yeah, like, this is a team that we were talking about against Colorado Springs, that they were very much kind of a coin flip side to make the playoffs. And time and time again, we've seen that Orange County has invested in the youth. They've rebuilt this team over and over again, just from players who have been sold elsewhere, players who have exited. And more often than not, it's worked. And I still feel like there's no reason that we shouldn't doubt the Orange County process.
Yes, I hear that, but also coming into last season, they were my best team in the West. When we did the show last year, I had them ranked number 1. I don't know. I'm just not as big on this team as I was last year, and I was high on this team last year, and they are considerably worse. I just don't know what the next step is. And I do like their young players. They're going to have an exciting team. They have players that I like individually, but they did last year too. Maybe this is just me having my ego hurt or something, but I just cannot look at the downgrades from last year and say, yeah, this team will just make the playoffs again.
See, I would even push back on the idea of downgrades. Like, Tristan Traeger, who I think is terrific, but he spent a lot of the year injured. That's not a gigantic loss. I already kind of registered my Bryce Jamison thoughts. I thought Vuk Latinovic was really poor in central defense. So SP's probably an upgrade over that. Have they got any better? Firmly no. Are they at the same level? Yes. And then you're relying on, okay, we've got McKinnon healthy. Mamadou War is going to step up in year 2. Palomino was awesome for the Charlotte Independents in 21 and can be something in the midfield. It feels like there is the route to internal growth, not to the level that we thought they were going to be last season. Like, both of us were just way out over our skis thinking this was a team that could contend. But this certainly a playoff contender and a team that has gone slightly up for my money.
I'm also, and granted, we still have 3 weeks until the season starts. So when people are watching this 2 weeks into the season, they're going to say, you didn't know about blank player being here. You guys don't know ball. It's 3 weeks before the season starts. But the roster looks incredibly thin right now, where if you get an injury across the back line, good luck, I guess. It's so barren back there and in that midfield as well, where I know they're going to announce people and I know they're going to have players there, but again, not proven commodities. Now, granted, that's not too big of a deal. We've seen college kids make the step. We've seen League One, MLS Next Team players make the step, and it's fine. And that's great for depth reasons. But you still don't love the position they're in currently as it stands.
No disagreement there.
Anything else?
Starting my Nico Ben Alcazar all-league campaign right now.
When we talked about him with Danny Stone last year, I remember asking him, like, he can play anywhere in the central midfield. You can play him at center back. How do you deploy him? Like, how do you get the best out of him? And Danny Stone was just basically like, you get the best out of him by just playing him. Like, he's just good everywhere, so just play him wherever you want, and he'll be class. And I was like, that's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah, great player.
All right. Any other thoughts? All right. Let's go to. Oh, is that too far? Nope, that was right. Las Vegas Lights. The Lights was a team that after they were real bright in 2024, Sanchez left, and so did the light in their eyes. Kind of. That was, I don't know. I was trying to do something there, and it was stupid. Dislike this. But they
unsubscribe.
They have revitalized this team. And there's a lot of players from last year that you like. There are players from yesteryear that you like. There are players that I currently like on this team. But is Kyle Scott the engine that gets this team going to maybe the heights that they reached in 2024?
I think I'm falling into the same trap that I did with Orange County last season, where I do think Kyle Scott is enough to carry this midfield and make them make sense. And that just isn't true in practice. Now, Las Vegas has improved in a lot of places, right? Like, you look at the forward line with Arteaga. Ben Mines sneakily had 10 goal contributions last year, and I don't think anybody knew that. He's like a very good player. Mark Ibarra does everything in the midfield. They've got new center backs, Mazzola, Rocks. So it's not just Kyle Scott, but it is so obvious that he has to be the guy in the midfield who is setting things up, pulling strings, even in set pieces, setting the table for that. To me, I think he is good enough to get them into the playoff convo, but that is not a sure thing.
I mean, to their credit, like, last season couldn't have gone like much worse than they could in club history. They had 6 wins on the board. All of them, oddly, were shutout victories, but like, those were the only instances of getting those shutouts on, or basically all of those were shutout victories. And like, if you look back through their club history, they scored fewer goals last season than the COVID shortened year in 2020 as well, that had half the number of games being played. Like,
awesome.
This is just something that, like, the bar was so low from last year that, like, Las Vegas will improve upon that, or at least you will hope they put more than 27 points on the board for this upcoming season. It's just so many question marks you still have kind of surrounding this team. On the bright side, for the scheduling purposes, we're 116 days away from last season's both conferences wooden spoon battle between Las Vegas traveling to Birmingham, and 172 days away between the meme battle of Miami and Las Vegas as well, which I always look forward to.
Love it. I'm going to go ahead and throw this from the chat. Mazzola for goalkeeper of the year. That was exactly what I was going to throw into. I love this guy. He was awesome in Greenville. He shined when he had a chance in Sacramento. Unfortunately for him, Vitiello is just always that guy and just never seemed to be hurt. And so he never got his chance besides some cup competitions. Between that, you get Guillen, you get a Famo in front of him. You love what Smart is doing. If you want to, if I'm remembering this right, there's a Backfield article where you mentioned Smart, John. So, read that. You like what you're seeing out of this back line where it's going to be an upgrade. Ybarra comes over, and I like what I see with that midfield tandem and Scott. We have them ranked 10th, but I don't think it's out of lack of talent. Genuinely, I'm looking at this team, and I remember ranking them higher than Orange County, but it's not for a lack of talent. It's just this league has gotten so good at this point where they are not at the same level as the San Antonio, as Lexington, obviously, in my eyes, Oakland, but they're not far off. The gap is not as insurmountable as it used to be.
The gap between teams 5 and 11 is vanishingly thin. And if Vegas finished in 5th, I don't think any of us would be surprised.
No.
I mean, there was only 13 points that separated Phoenix in 5th and Las Vegas in 12th. That's you switch a handful of results here and there, and that very quickly changes.
Do we think that Johnny Rodriguez becomes Johnny Rodriguez from Oakland ever again?
I think we're going to learn quite quickly if that's the case. The thing about those Oakland teams is that they were very cross-centric and constantly teeing him up with service. The way that Devin Rensing wants to play, obviously coming from years at the hip of Ben Pierman, it's a little bit more patient, trying to work through the channels, find the pockets, and be controlled in the way you enter the box. I don't know if that's necessarily Rodriguez's thing. That's not to say he can't be a 10-goal guy within that system. I think that's obviously his level. But there's a little bit of something to prove for him after a very disappointing debut season there.
Also, I think because he's kind of fallen off the depth chart just a little bit, players like Knight, who apparently, full name Knight Pickering, but apparently he just likes to go by Knight from what I've been told. Anyway, a former U.S. Youth national team player, if he gets starting again, he's probably going to be called right back up. He has the potential to be all league and just blow everybody out of the water. Definitely someone to circle over on that left-hand side.
I think there's a decent chance, just given what they're going to want out of that position, that he could end up starting.
Any final thoughts on Las Vegas? All right. El Paso Locomotive. Unfortunately, our good friend Phil could not be here. But to talk about this, however, seriously, Loco always records, and they do a great job over there. But is the attacking firepower they have great enough to overcome what could be the worst back line in the USL Championship?
There's certainly a case to make. And I think a lot of that relies on Junior Gonzalez's system and the way that he's going to set this team up. He has always been a possession-first kind of manager, and it's sort of a shape that grows more expansive as it goes upfield. He likes to tuck the fullbacks in, let them be creators. It's this 2 center back and then fullback, number 6 fullback line that just makes sure that you aren't bleeding in transition, but also forces opposing presses to step up. And then, as a knock-on effect, you can play those longer through balls towards a Moreno, towards a Rubio Rubin. So if that formula works out, and it's Gabby Torres hitting through balls to Armando Moreno all day, you kind of see the vision for what El Paso is trying to be. Now, the second they give the ball away and they have to get back into their block, and it's Tony Alfaro and Palermo Ortiz, you start to have some doubts. But I think the best case where El Paso really lives up to that potential could be one of the most fun teams in this league.
And this El Paso team had 3 separate instances last season where they was able to put 5 games unbeaten consecutively, like 3 separate times this past year. Like they were putting up like these high scoring games. We've already mentioned the 4-4 game they had against Phoenix. They put a 6-0 result over Las Vegas as well. Like they were very much a high scoring team, but like we've mentioned, this back line is incredibly woeful. I was going through some of the like historical results. Like Las Vegas had one of their earlier histories when they conceded 77 goals in a season. 2024 Miami FC had 89 goals conceded in the year. And like it might be a question mark of like how many goals does this El Paso team give up? And the record conceded in a season was 52. And like I think they might very well be giving up that amount.
You can't stop me from believing in Abraham Romero, who is currently listed as their backup goalkeeper, but you cannot stop me from believing in him.
That has changed in the live depth chart thing, by the way, because I've kind of convinced myself that he's got the goods.
Like there's a part of me that they might do a little bit of a Jamali Wait, which they've been doing the last 2 years, which is Jamali's back there somewhere, please save us. And he normally did, and it was ridiculous. Like every single week he was winning save of the week, and it was like, wow, Jamali Wait won save of the week. El Paso lost 3-0 yet again. Like, but
the Mike Trout Angels experience.
But I mean, I'm still looking at this front line where I'm looking at Moreno and Rubin, and I'm looking at Vila, Cavallo, at Santi as well in that the base of the midfield, and I'm just like, I'm kind of believing. And this is where I'm once again in that roster part of the season of like, I believe in this team. This team's going to win it all. I don't quite have that thought with El Paso, but in my brain, there's also a world where they managed to just find themselves in a home playoff spot like last year again. And would I be shocked? Yeah. But also, I think this team is about equal to the team last year. And weird stuff happened last year for it to happen. Who says that, the West is not a simulation once again?
And I can convince myself that there are 2 decent center backs in that mix somehow. Dolenmeyer is a guy I have a lot of time of day for, and new management is going to be more willing to give him minutes. If he starts, you're halfway there for my money. Kofi Twumasi could end up being the 6 in this team just because of the variability, but he's got some real talent, and multiple coaches have seen that in him. Ortiz is a loose cannon and a kind of a walking red card, but if he keeps a level head, that's something. If those guys are halfway decent, everything about El Paso starts to feel more comfortable.
Is there a world where you see a 3-back with Dolenmeyer stepping in as a 3rd? And Twumasi being that Pierre type where he's a 6 out possession, a 3rd center back in, or you know what I'm saying? Stepping up in possession, dropping back out.
I think there is a slim chance. That's never been Junior Gonzalez's thing. Like he's a pretty strict 4 at the back, straight up kind of guy. It fits the roster, so who knows?
Any final thoughts on this team?
Sorry, Phil.
Hey, listen, we're just destined to be together forever with Legion. So like when we get to next week's predictions, we'll be right here. And I will also not be here for some reason. It's fine. So we love you, Phil. Last but not least, Monterey Bay. Will the Division 3 guys that this team has brought in make that step up? And I'm going to try to find the question in chat. It happened really early on, but
I took a screenshot of it. Oh, you got it. Good.
It was taking the question of what's the gap between League One and the championship. And the Sacramento Monterey play full teams when they play us. That's a secondary question from the Boise fan. But how big is the gap between League One and the championship? Well, we always say it on the show. It's not that big. The gap is not that big, but Monterey Bay, I think, might be putting it to the test this year.
And I focus on that as the question because Monterey pretty clearly is built around the idea that Facunda Canete can come in from Carolina Core, Eduardo Blancas can come in from AV Alta, and Stuart Ritchie will move from the champs in Knoxville. And all three of those guys will just be starters from day one and impact players. That's a lot to be betting on guys who just haven't done it at the championship level. And you look at them individually, all the talent in the world, they feel like guys who are ready for the jump. But are they ready in the context of you put them in a winning team and then they contribute? That makes more sense than saying they are the talisman for Monterey Bay in 2026. That's where the doubt starts to seep in. And that's why it is a litmus test for what is the gap between divisions really.
And this was a Monterey Bay team who did lose to a USL 1 team in AV Alta, albeit on a final day of that group stage for the Jägermeister Cup last season when neither team had really much to play for or beyond that. But yeah, like if you're looking at Monterey Bay, it's just kind of historically, you have to kind of wonder like where a lot of the project has been going. This is a team who still is yet to make the playoffs, who had their lowest points per game in a season in club history last year, that you really want to have this team be successful. Like it's good for California. It's good for the league to have so many competitive teams nearby one another. But there's just been so many question marks surrounding Monterey Bay recently and just as a club that you just have to wonder like when and where will it kind of just click together.
And just real quick on the roster build philosophy, I am totally open to clubs going outside the usual sources of talent. Like you think about Tulsa with Weber and Colley and Serrato and Ian, what Phoenix always does getting internationals. That feels so strategic and intentional with the guys they're scouting. Monterey did this last season. Like they got a bunch of guys from Northern Europe, a bunch of guys from the lower leagues, and it didn't work for them at all. To me, they need to prove that there is that level of vision. And that's why getting Oliver Wyss in the front office is so important. He knows what he's doing in the USL. It feels like what they have tried to make their team become for 26 hopefully has that little bit of extra sauce behind it.
I'm looking at Nico Gordon, who last year coming into the season was my early on, like he could be young player of the year. And he was that guy. I love what you get out of Nico Gordon. I think he's a young player. He's so much younger than you think he would be coming from England and then going through the MLS system. He's just younger than you think, but he is someone you can really rely on. You look at Ritchie, who is, I mean, he's a dude. Same thing with Blancas, and you're like, okay, these are known commodities. And then you see Delgado back there, where you know the vision. He's a young goalkeeper who can grow into being a great goalkeeper, but the film does not match what you want to see. You want to see your goalkeeper being, well, frankly, a Nico Campuzano, who this team lost to Pittsburgh, where he's going to stand on his head. He's going to make saves and make saves and make saves. It's not really Delgado's thing. Delgado can make saves when needed, but you want him to be building up possession, holding onto the ball, maybe making one of those line splitting passes. And that's what you might want from this team. And going forward, but defensively, do they have enough about them to keep them into matches? I'm not fully convinced of it.
Farnsworth feels like a big get. There were a lot of questions when you were just kind of penciling in Kelsey Egwu, who is gigantic and athletic and toolsy, but maybe not that effective yet at this stage in his career. Whereas Farnsworth has done the job for years in the RSL system, can play left back, can play center back. Gives you a little bit of comfort next to Gordon, who I really do trust. Joel Garcia was fine last season. That's all right. But yeah, it's going to be a lot contingent on Delgado proving he can be a number one in this league.
And this was a team who only put 3 clean sheets on the board last season and were shut out 14 times in the league.
Monterey Bay also has this thing where the last 2 years they've just done something insane. Like last year, they were kind of beating everybody because Nico Campuzano just refused to let in goals and was just standing on his head. The year before that, was it Traeger and who else did they have out there? Was formerly at Pittsburgh, and I'm blanking on his name. Basically, they just could not stop scoring. If the ball was on target, it was just going in.
Was it Valesky?
Maybe. I know Valesky was there, but it was a winger from Pittsburgh.
Oh, Chase Boone.
Yes, thank you. No, that's not it. Oh my gosh. Anyway,
He did
But-
score bucket loads at one point in any event.
Yes.
But yes.
but basically, they just could not stop scoring the entire time, and they were like, if the ball was on target, we just scored. And then halfway through the season, that they were like, "This, we are who they thought they were," and they just stopped scoring altogether. Same thing with Nico Campuzano; he proved that he was indeed human. So if Monterey Bay could just be consistent, that would be great for an entire year. Alex Dixon, thank you, Ryan.
Boone went to Pittsburgh. That's my
Yes.
yeah.
But yeah, that's if I could just ask Monterey Bay just to be consistent throughout the year and not do these like insane starts where they're just doing the most outlier thing of all time, that'd be awesome.
If anything, I want Mon. Sorry,
for
go
it.
ahead, John. No,
No, go
mine
ahead.
was more of a joke. So
Well, I was just gonna say, like, Jordan Stewart is weird for me because this team has been bad the entire time he's managed there, and yet I genuinely think he's done a very good coaching job, and a lot of this has just been out of his control.
if anything, even though they are currently last in the Western Conference rankings, they are first in my heart with Kelpie as the best mascot in possibly the
Yeah,
league, and I just want Kelpie to be happy.
Kelpie scares me,
I feel
just
that.
straight up.
Dead eyes.
That's why we should put him in a good mood.
I guess so. All right. That's the teams. That's everybody. Just kind of final rundown. Tulsa in first, Lexington in second, Sacramento in third, Oakland in fourth. That's the big conversation here. New Mexico in fifth, San Antonio in sixth, Phoenix in seventh, Colorado Springs in eighth. Just missing the playoffs was Orange County in ninth. They got Las Vegas in 10th, Locomotive in 11th, and Monterey Bay in 12th. I put the wooden spoon. We didn't actually say if they were going to win the league wooden spoon or not. I just kind of figured that'd be the best way to tell everybody that they did indeed finish last in our rankings. Was there any USL thoughts in the Western Conference that we did not quite get to or maybe popped into mind after we left the team?
I think we did a really good job. How about that?
Yeah, I'm proud of us. Good job, guys. Yeah, I honestly got nothing here. So next week, same time, same place. Be on the lookout for the Eastern Conference form. Hopefully that will be coming out tomorrow. These videos will be cut up and segmented throughout the week. They'll be put in one major playlist. There was one major playlist from last year with every men's team, Western Conference, Eastern Conference, League One, all in one playlist. So this will be done the same exact way. All that will be here next week. But how about some final thoughts, John?
Yeah, I'm going to use this to just plug back yields where if you're an MLS person, Joe Lowry has like 40,000 words talking about every MLS team. I will be coming, oh boy, less than 14 days with the same thing for every team in the championship and League One. And if you like the attendance tracker, roster tracker, all that stuff, we are moving that to Backfield soon. So go subscribe. The resources will be free for people who aren't subscribers, but if you aren't paying, I'll be sad.
It's $5. It is literally just $5. If your teacher friend can afford it, so can you. Also, it's just incredibly worth it. Also, can confirm not written by AI. So
can confirm. Just one absolute nerd who's writing 15,000 words a week about the USL.
Ryan?
Yeah, I guess to talk about other things that are at least being watched, I didn't realize that we were so close to the season 2 premiere of Paradise, which will be next Monday when it'll all launch. So by the
Whoa.
time we get to the Eastern Conference recording, we'll have the first episodes of Paradise season 2, and it just kind of popped in my head here. So yeah, that's on the horizon.
That show rocks. I know we talked about it when it was airing. It's just the right amount of trashy to be fun, but also you'll get like one episode that's the most chilling, dramatic thing you see all year. Like just absolute peak TV right there.
For me, one thing I realized today as I've like started getting back into doing the gym thing, couple things. First, I'm not usually that sore after workouts except for chest day. Chest day wrecks me. Leg day, arm day, totally fine. Ab day, usually fine. But anything that involves the chest, I'm worthless. So I hate it. I hate chest day. It's the worst. If anybody has any way to like get rid of soreness there, like any kind of stretches they found that helped, please send it my way because I am dying.
It's my hamstrings that get me. That for whatever reason, those are just sore.
Hamstrings I'm usually fine with. I can get like I get a little tight sometimes, but not like sore. But like this part of the chest is just like brutal.
Wild.
Second part or second thing, the reason I go to the place I do is because they have a basketball court, and I'm just like, okay, I want that's like my way of getting cardio is playing basketball because I just cannot hop on a treadmill or just run. Ryan, I'm not like you. I cannot do that. I have to be.
Don't worry,
doing
I don't like the treadmill either. I feel like a hamster.
or I'm just being running in general. Like if I'm going to be running, I want to be doing something else while doing it and not just focusing on the fact that I hate running. But if this place opens up at 6 a.m., the basketball court is open from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. And then they have like this, like we watch kids from 7 until 6:30 at night, in which the gym is open from 6:30 until 8. So they have this full basketball court that's open for 2.5 hours a day when they're open for 14.
So
What are we
weird.
doing?
So weird.
Like, I love that it's an affordable place for kids to go and like parents can have affordable like childcare. Like, please do more of that. But can you put them anywhere but the basketball court? Literally anywhere else. It's fine. Anyway, those are my thoughts for this week. We will see you guys next week. We are getting here. It's happening. Hopefully, sign the CBA. But we will see you guys next week. And for the first and final time tonight, here's Alan's voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show. The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.